On this episode of AV Week, the future of hybrid, on-demand, or virtual learning, supply chain issues and the rise of COVID in Shenzhen, and ads on your touchscreen. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 552, recorded Friday, March 18th, 2022. Communicate.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Extron, industry-leading technology backed by world-class support.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week, first and foremost, Haley Klein from PSNI. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. I have not seen your face in forever.
2 years.
But I get to see it in person in like 2 weeks, and I'm really excited about that, and we'll talk about that at the end of the show, which has turned into Tim's travel tips, apparently, because I'm going everywhere. I don't know which one of you is geographically closest to me, so we'll just do ladies first. Corey Schaefer is also with us from QSC. Welcome, ma'am.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here with Frank and Haley.
Absolutely. Yeah, Corey is in the Santa Barbara area, California. And Frank Patakala is, I always get this screwed up. You're in Long Island.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I always want to say New Jersey.
I've only been on this show like 1,000 times.
No, but for some reason, I always have you in New Jersey, and I don't know why.
It's probably because more of the louder AV tweets are from New Jersey. So,
I don't know.
I'm out here repping Long Island.
We were just talking about Gina Sansevero, and she's kind of loud too. So, hey. She's from Long Island. That was a joke.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
She is kind of loud. All right. With today's top story, good Lord, I'm going to get myself in all kinds of trouble. Good Lord Almighty. First story here today comes to us from our friends over at AV Network, talking about Extron and YUJA, and I am not even going to attempt to pronounce this. I believe it's called Yuja or Yuja. They are coming together to create an on-demand and live video engagement. The announcement came from Extron, who is a sponsor of AVNation. They announced the latest Lake license upgrade. It seamlessly integrates the SMP 300 with the video platform from Yuja. Haley, I want to start with you on this. One of the things that PSNI does really well is they touch and they connect with the education market. When you guys look at stuff like this and we start talking about the return to work and the return to the classroom, what are we seeing and what are we hearing from PSNI members, from a lot of these AV users, when we start talking about hybrid, on-demand, and kind of that combination? Because sometimes there's a corollary between the return to work, which is, a lot of us have agreed that there's going to be a hybrid portion to that. What are they looking at when it comes to education and the hybrid version of that?
I think that there is some frustration when it comes to hybrid in education. However, I don't think it's going away. And in fact, it's become a very simplistic way to keep schools going. So, I'm in Minnesota. Obviously, there's snow days, right? And in the past, that was actually a fantastic time. We actually got a snow day. We got to go sledding. Not anymore, actually. So my very good friend's a teacher, and now she can actually, continue on with her job by doing this. So, I think I understand there's a lot of frustration. Again, in Minnesota right now, there's a huge strike, in fact, going on with hybrid work, hybrid education. So I know there's frustration coupled with it, but it's not going anywhere, and it's providing a lot of convenience factors as well. So I think it's something that will continue to be embraced, continue to, eventually possibly be the mainstream for some people. And we're certainly seeing it, with our integrators are certainly embracing this model as well.
Did I just understand that they got rid of snow days now because of hybrid learning? Is that what you just said?
Isn't that sad?
Like, that sucks, dude. Like,
no excuses anymore.
Yeah, your parents would say they walked up the hill, both ways in the snow and whatever. And now poor kids have got to go to school even on snow days. All right. Corey, when you guys at QSC start talking to the education folks, what are you guys hearing and seeing as far as this kind of balance between hybrid learning, non-concurrent? I've also heard, various versions of that when it comes to getting back into the classroom.
So agree with Haley. I mean, it's here to stay, and it's actually not just in education, right? It's in corporate, it's in events, et cetera. And I'm curious about, is this going to change the buying season for higher ed, right? Because it's no longer. I mean, typically they would do installs over the summer, but now they're upgrading at all times of the year, et cetera. So it's definitely here to stay, and it's in all the other verticals as well. So we've got some trade shows coming up. I think we're going to see streaming and people that don't attend the trade show be able to attend it virtually, which I think is super cool. I think it's great in higher ed, and it's definitely here in corporate as well. I mean, you look at the Zoomers and Microsoft Teams, they're all trying to find out, how do we pull the remote in to the meeting room, et cetera, and have meeting equity. So I mean, it's just happening across all of the verticals, and including Zoom acquired a company, I think it was in December of last year, that just does events, right? So they're thinking that for education, corporate, trade shows, I mean, they've done an acquisition to prep for it. So I think they believe it's here to stay as well.
All right. Frank, we didn't mention who you work for because I think the last time we had you on, you've moved since then. You now work for Audinate, our friends that give us the Dante platform. Certainly, you guys are involved in, not just delivering, audio and video over the network, but also making some of these solutions possible. What are you guys hearing as far as getting back to the class?
I'm going to echo what Corey and Haley said. It's pretty much the same thing. Honestly, I read this news report about the Extron partnering with UJA. It's fascinating for me from a technology perspective that we have simplified things so much. Whenever I think the word seamless has been used in the AV industry for decades, right? But we were never really seamless, right? Because seamless meant some poor programmer or some design engineer and a project manager practically dying. That's what seamless meant. But now it is actually seamless. When they say it is seamless, you can actually start up one of these devices and the intended lecture capture video streaming platform, it just works. And that's beautiful. I think the point that we have to understand, for so long, we have been the providers of technology, but thanks to all the things that's happening, all the world events that's happening, we now have options. I think that's the way we see it. You don't have to be disrupted. You just have to think, what can we do with what we have? And you'll find your answer right there. It's not even out of the box, because it's all in the box. It's all part of that big ecosystem that we're building. So it's fascinating. I love the technology of it.
So we have to stay in the box now.
In the box. Everything's in the box.
All right. Oh, next story comes to us from Fortune magazine. This may be one of the few times I've used Fortune for AVWeek. But another Shenzhen lockdown is going to affect everything from cars to iPhones. This week, Chinese government shut down a major tech hub in Shenzhen. It's supposed to last about a week as they test the 17.5 million residents for COVID. Corey, we'll start with you. This in conjunction with the story we covered last week with the conflict in Russia and Ukraine. The Ukraine has a number of AV connections. Haley and the folks at PSNI are trying to raise money to support some of those folks. There are a number of AV dealers in Ukraine, including a fellow PSNI member. But that country also houses a lot of software developers. It also houses a number of production facilities that produce the wafers on which the chips sit, right? Yeah. So you've got this conflict over here. You've got another resurgence of COVID in Shenzhen, which is a major manufacturing hub, including for a lot of AV products.
Yep.
Is this just like, how are we supposed to deal with this as we talk with clients, as you talk to, to dealers, going forward? It's like, all right, you've been waiting for 2, 3, 4 weeks. Now we're waiting 2, 3, 4 months. How are we maneuvering these waters?
Well, and some have waited even longer than 2 or 3, 4 months. Sometimes they're waiting really a long time. What we're asking of end users and of our channel partners is that we just get really tighter on communication, because they may have a project that has one of our boxes, but we have probably 6 other boxes that do the same thing. And so we've got ways to kind of put a puzzle together, et cetera. But it just requires we have to just get better at communication and understand that this is, I mean, there's all this craziness happening all over the world, right? We're hearing, yes, COVID's back in China. I also heard the strain coming back over in Europe, with things getting lifted. So what is that going to do? What the good part about what we're all going through here is we just have to increase the communication and understand that there are options. It really is so disheartening when you get loyalty with a partner or an end user and you've gotten them to standardize on your solution and then you can't deliver it. They just kind of look at how do they get it from anyone just to get the job done. So our ask of partners is just let's really get closer on that communication, and the earlier the better. And just not assume that if you place an order, for example, of a Core 110, and if you can't get it, that's your only option. I mean, we've got many cores to choose from, and so there might be a way to still get the job done by using an alternate box, if you will.
So kind of drilling down into exactly what kind of I/O, what kind of functionality you're really looking for.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Frank, as you're talking with folks and helping them design AV over IP systems, what are you hearing, and as to how people are really kind of navigating these choppy waters right now?
I think the biggest shift for me is the embrace of software-based solutions, right? And the amount of R&D that a lot of manufacturers have put into it are finally now being seen as legitimate options, because AV traditionally is a hardware-based thing. I mean, we always look at things from which box can we put in to solve this problem. You don't technically need a box. We all have the box called the PC and server-based systems, and expand that into virtual machines and the cloud. I think there is a general interest among people to look at things from a software perspective. And I think that's a good thing, because the supply chain issues that we're seeing today, although the events kind of compound to make it what it is today, it's been in the making for a long time. And I'd like to say, as someone who's, who's not a pessimist, but I'm not overly optimistic either about our chances of just one day saying, hey, we can go back to ordering like a night before we need the thing. That's never going to happen. I don't think it ever should have happened in the first place, but it was practice. I think we've moved on, and software is a good thing. Yeah. Let's embrace software.
Frank, we use software-based Dante, and it's really great because we don't have to slip in a card or have a different, thing.
Correct.
It's just been great. Yeah.
Yeah, it works. And, the only problem is people always kind of lean towards Windows or their experience there and think, oh, this is not going to work. That's not how it's done. We have very robust systems. And I echo that for a lot of manufacturers out there. That's the way to go. You can't keep designing systems with boxes in mind, because you just might not get the box you want.
Right.
It's a reality.
Well, you relate to that last story on Extron. That's software,
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to throw something really kind of left field, and Haley, I want to get your perspective, especially from the PSNI, because you've got a kind of a global perspective on this. There's two things kind of in my head. I'm just going to ask the entire group here, and y'all can tell me I'm crazy, or you can tell me that it makes sense. But with the advent and the increase of 3D printing, right? Is there a point in time where just-in-time manufacturing happens in like regionalized, right? So all three of you guys are in three different parts of the U.S., right? Corey's on the West Coast, Frank's on the East Coast, and Haley and I are both in the middle. Where Corey orders something and the costs have been reduced to the point where I don't make it until she orders it. And the speed at which 3D printing and the speed at which other things can happen, where the overhead is reduced and all these other things are reduced and supply chains are reduced, right? I don't worry about a chip coming from XYZ place in the world, because everything is localized in it. Does that make any sense at all, or am I just half-baked here?
I think it makes perfect sense. It's things that you can't export. I've always been a fan of that kind of regional approach to these things, and getting more. The problem is the technology and how you can kind of decentralize the technology, because manufacturers are built on kind of having their resources all stacked up and getting that volume in. This is a completely different approach to it. I mean, it would be great if it becomes more practical. I don't know how, though.
Yeah.
It's a challenging process.
I mean, I don't know whether you're nuts or not, but what...
Well, I mean, I do, but I'm not going to say that. We're getting recorded.
But I feel like there are models that we have to look at, right? So like, to Frank's point, software really key, going to help us in availability and so on. And then I do think regionally inventorying things regionally. I mean, the fact that we've all experienced when you order something on Amazon, I got something the same day, so it had to be in my region, right?
And they have the algorithms to say, Corey or somebody like her is going to order this thing most likely sometime the next week. So let's make sure that it's there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's the model we'll probably see sooner than the 3D. I don't know how to 3D print a core, but
I do think some of this is just forcing innovation in front of us, and so it's kind of this forced innovation coupled with continuous learning based off all this change that's happening. So I do think the good thing about all of this, right, is that manufacturers are becoming more creative with the solutions that they're providing. They're making sure that they can change some of those solutions from all the bells and whistles into a more simplistic and more needed solution. And again, sometimes it's coming down to can we make this work in the moment, and is it everything that we need? Again, I just think it's forcing some innovation that's then having a ripple effect into new jobs being created, new R&D that's, taking place. We'll see big changes happening in technology overall because of all of this. So while it's unfortunate, we're also really coming into this new phase of technology and again, we've really relied on technology now, and we know that. So I do think there is some opportunity to this.
All right. Haley, I do want to wrap up this segment from the global perspective with PSNI. What are you hearing from your partners around the world and the way that they're dealing with the supply chain issue regionally, right, depending on where they are in the world?
It's hard. Absolutely. I mean, again, everyone's facing the same issue. So there's a ton of projects in the backlog, but again, being able to pursue those fully at this time, it's just taking a longer delay. Again, people are getting creative, and unfortunately, just like Corey said, some of those brands that you want to be working with, unfortunately, if they can't get their hands on it, they do have to move on to the next good enough solution at times. So that has been taking place. There's a lot of others that PSNI right now, we're working really hard on developing some language around how we deal with some of these customers to make sure, again, open line of communication, making sure that we can kind of tell them, here's what we're dealing with, and here's the solutions we can offer, what we can't offer, and how we can kind of overcome some of this. So definitely feeling it around the globe. I mean, nobody's immune, that's for sure.
Haley, are they giving your PSNI partners, do they have advice for us manufacturers and things that they're really needing from us when we can't
they need
deliver?
Product.
Well, I know that.
I also think honesty, because sometimes so we've been hearing stories about manufacturers sending empty boxes. So they'll send the box and there's no technology.
Good God.
An invoice?
Isn't that awful?
Oh my God.
So we've heard really bad stories. And so I think sometimes
It's almost like when my friend ordered an iPhone 7 and he got an iPhone 4 and an iPhone 3 in a box.
Oh, that's awesome.
It happened. I'm not lying. This happened for real.
I almost want you to say who it was out loud just so we can screen them.
So do I.
But I will say it wasn't one of my PVPs. And that's
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
But I mean, so I think that's a part of it too. I think, and I feel bad. I mean, God, I can only imagine, but I know those manufacturers want to not lose that brand loyalty, not lose that exposure, but don't do that, because you'll never get it back. You'll never recover. And so I do think some honesty on that, and just a true, hey guys, it's coming, but it's still 6 weeks out, or whatever you can give them in that respect, I think is really important, because we've been hearing some horror stories. So
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think, Corey, one thing that I would say is communication both ways, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
And there's an old line, and I'm gonna get this wrong, but nothing ages worse than the truth, right? Give me the truth as quickly as possible and as soon as possible, and let me make my decision from there,
Yeah.
right? I think that there's a lot to be said on both sides there.
Yeah. Excellent point. It's got to go both ways for sure.
All right, last story, and stick with me here, kids, because I'm going to take some turns, but stick with me. It's from a website called XDA Developers. The headline is this: Microsoft could be bringing ads as an advertisement to Windows 11 File Explorer. Now, after the story posted, Microsoft came out and said, now, wait a minute here. That wasn't supposed to be public. That was just a test, whatever. But the fact that they're testing ads inside your Windows machine, okay. This, in conjunction with Major League Baseball and part of their collective bargaining agreement that got baseball happening. If you like baseball, congratulations, it's coming back. They're going to start putting ads on the uniforms, a la NASCAR. Not that bad, right? We're not talking about, I almost said Ozzie Smith, which just shows exactly how old I am. Pick a baseball player because they all went out of my head right now. In full, like ads from top to bottom, but there will be ads on their sleeves or on the back of their helmet, right? Corey mentioned the fact that before we started recording, that on the NBA, there's a number, they're starting to show up. Soccer, football, European, in Europe, certainly on theirs for a long time. This led my crazy half-cocked brain to go, okay, when do we start seeing this in AV, right? When do we start, pushing this out on a touch panel? When do we start, Frank works for Audinate. They do AV, audio and video, both over the network. Well, they could insert an ad on top of, on top of your video. So
like an overlay, and you got to pay $19.99 to get.
That's what I'm saying. Or
That's awesome.
that was not Audinate at the time. Don't quote me on that, please.
But or the opposite side, Frank, right? I'll pick on Joe Way, right? And Joe is doing some fantastic stuff right now. He's going to speak at the UN for crying out loud, okay? He has officially become my hero. He works for USC. You've got some highfalutin donor that comes in and gives USC $10 million, but part of the deal is they want an ad over every single piece of video that goes over the network. Mm-hmm. And we can do that now, right? So my question then, and Frank, we'll start with you. When do we start seeing, ads being pushed in various aspects of an AV installation?
I'm going to be the odd person here and say I'm okay with it happening. It should happen. Because the reality of it is we have moved away from that niche custom approach to AV. We are now a platform. Right? Anything that we do generally in the corporate or higher ed has a platform associated with it. Advertisements are what make a lot of these things happen, right? Like it or not, unless you're off the grid, if you have a phone, you are feeding into some form of data analytics every minute of your day, right? So as long as there is ethics associated with marketing and data collection, and there is a policy that whoever is the recipient of it is you make them know that, yes, we're doing this, you will see ads, and give them the option to do that. I don't think it's too far off. I think the bigger change, I don't think it's a technical problem for this to happen. Technically, from on the back end, it's ready. We could do it. It's more of a sales marketing / relationship issue if you want to do that. And what are the boundaries? I think all the marketing leads in the AV industry, who I think work extremely hard, and they have probably one of the most challenging things in AV. It's up to them to decide how are we going to utilize this, because it's reality. Technology supports that right now. It's about making it happen and basically building the ethics around it. But go for it.
Really, because I hate ads, and I was kind of thinking when I saw this, like, I hate.
It's inevitable though.
I hate the pop-ups on a website. A little bot coming up, like, can I help you? I'm just over that. Because I feel like we're getting it, everywhere. And, to Tim's point, on a touch panel, I'm like, because I feel like we should be branding that for the customer. But then, I guess on the other hand, if we have the ability to do it and it helps someone buy more technology, or, we should be open to it, because I guess, on websites and things, we do things like featured partners, right? Everything's about.
That's where the creativity needs to happen, right? It's we don't know how to do it, but
so hang on for a second. There are a couple of control manufacturers.
Yeah, I've heard of one with 3 letters.
With 3 letters that you guys may be able to do this too, but I don't know that for a fact, and you can correct me. That are taking existing AV over IP systems, and if it's not being used, flipping it into a digital signage platform.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Same thing here. All a touch panel is, and again, I'm a failed programmer, so I know enough to be dangerous here. All a touch panel is, it's a display that you can interact with.
True.
Correct.
Haley, we'll give you the last word on this, and
I feel like it's already peppered in, and we might not even be aware of it, right? So one,
So true.
there's meeting the user where the user is. That's marketing 101, right? You want to make sure you're doing the right thing. And I so agree with you, Frank. There has to be ethics around it. You cannot spam people. Corey, to your point, every website page, everything, I don't want pop-ups. I don't want that. That being said, highest lead turnover for us, right, is some of those automated bots, some of that interaction, that one-to-one communication, because you're meeting that user where they are. We are seeing, right, advertorial when we do these hybrid events now. We're streaming these events. People are jumping into our platform. It's all Pro AV material, but this is sponsored by QSC or whatever it may be. So you are getting this peppered in to certain degrees. Now we're taking it a little bit further, but it is the natural progression. And with AV and our industry kind of needing more visibility in that aspect, and then think about case studies, right? That's a known factor for something that a user wants to see, wants to understand. Who were those partners? What was the technology? I can see myself in this install. I can understand that. Now you take that one step further and you actually put that in the face of actually being exposed to that technology while you're there in a very organic fashion that doesn't spam them, but is, oh, I understand this is what this is now. It really opens up a new door. So I completely agree with the hybrid of the two of you. It's don't be crazy about it. Don't spam them. Do enough to be dangerous or not. Don't disrupt the experience, but add to it. That's where I am. I think it's great.
So I will. This will be my only commentary on this, and it's on advertising in general. Just because I think stuff like this is fascinating. I think the history of media is fascinating. Look back into the 1800s and early half of the 20th century, and how advertising and newspapers and then television and radio kind of morphed into each other. And look at the first TV ads. It was Milton Berle standing up there, lighting up a camel, talking about how smooth it was. It wasn't a commercial break. It was the person hosting the event, hosting the show, talking about the product, talking about the sponsor, right? This is kind of how we've evolved into our relationship with advertising and with marketing. I agree with Corey about let's not do pop-ups, right? But let's make it organic and make it make sense.
Yep.
All right. That is all we will have time for today. Ms. Corey Schaefer, thank you, ma'am.
Hey, thanks for having me, and nice to see all of you. If you want to connect with me, I'm corey.schaefer@qsc.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn or on the Twitters.
All right. Mr. Frank Patakala, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. You can find me on the socials at Frank Patakala. Just a quick shout out to my team at AVNate. We've been working together to create these fun little videos. We're calling them Dante Quick Shots. So if you have a chance, you can find them on LinkedIn. Check it out. It's just pieces of information. But otherwise, feel free to reach out anywhere on the socials.
AVNate is building a rock star team. Just want to put that out there. Got Alicia there, got Corey, got some really, really cool folks. So yeah, absolutely. Haley, as I mentioned, I'll talk about this in a second. I get to see you in a couple of weeks, but how do people connect with you or PSNI?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and same with PSNI, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. We are everywhere.
All right, very good. My name is Tim Albright. Do not follow me on the Twitters, but go by the website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others, including Frank's been recording some stuff, so his IT factor is coming back. I am very excited about that. Mitchell's not, because that gives him more work to do, but I'm excited about it. But also follow along as I hit the road this year, mainly because I'm tired of sitting in my house. I mentioned the fact that by the time you hear this, I will be in Orlando for Enterprise Connect. So if you're going there, come on by. I'll be hanging out with our friend David Danto and the folks at Poly. Got some meetings with Sennheiser and Shure and Neat and a whole bunch of other folks. So come by and hang out. And then I do get to hang out with the fine folks at PSNI in a couple of weeks for the Super Summit. So we're doing a live stream panel discussion. Haley, talk about that for a second and where people can see that.
Yeah, so Super Summit, it's a historically closed event for PSNI Network only. However, every year we like to open up our Super Summit for an end user panel because we feel it would benefit the industry to hear these insights, manufacturers and fellow end users, hearing the insights of their peers. So we will have a really great lineup from oil and gas representatives, corporate representatives, we have healthcare representative, a government representative, really focusing on the future of work, where the technology integrator comes into play, some of the questions we asked today as far as that technology landscape and how that's impacting them. So yeah, please join us for that. We'll be streaming it live via Facebook Live on April 7th at 10 a.m. Central Time. So everyone is welcome to join us on that. You can also find that on the PSNI website, psni.org/events/Super Summit 22, something to that effect. I'm sure we can link it here. So
I'll make Mitchell put a link on that too.
Thank you. So yes, please join us. Really beneficial for the whole industry.
Yeah, and I get to be joined by them virtually, which is going to be a new thing for me because they're going to have displays of everybody kind of like next to me. So that's going to be kind of cool.
Use that technology. We're very excited about our setup.
Absolutely. There's that. I go to NAB. Corey and I get to hang out at ISE along with Haley in Barcelona. Do not feel sorry for me on that one. And then InfoComm in June. So that's an awful lot. But if you're at any of those, please hit me up. Go by the website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.